Today, Viking are at WMS Firearms Training in Darkest, Wales. We're just dodging the snow. It's on 1 minute, off the next. It's a quick rush inside to the shooting shack there to make a quick brew. And then as soon as the sun comes out, fair weather shooting, we'll come back out as well. Right, Andrew, thank you for having us today. We've got a lot of work to do, a lot of exercises, a lot of theories to try and cover. One of the ideas of coming here was to go back to basics, because I'm what I would call an avid hunter. Some people would call themselves an avid shooter. I'm a hunter. I like to hunt in the old respect, where I try and find the quarry and get down and dirty with it, as you want to.
Yeah.
You know, iron sights or low powered magnification. Now I understand there's lots of people out there hunting areas where there's just vast expanse of lands in North Oxfordshire, etc., and you can't get into a herd of fallow. You'd have to get them in the woodland to hunt the way I like it. I mean, you see so many people come through your training facility of all different levels of experience. I mean, have modern shooters lost the ability to shoot naturally now? Do they rely too much on technology? I mean, I use technology, binoculars and rangefinder still. I still use a scope. But most people I see now seem to be concentrating on long distance. The goal seems to be to shoot deer at 300 yards. And personally, I like to get down to below 50. I find the thrill is in the chase and the hunt. You know, that close-up shot and the growling, all that experience and taking it back for the freezer. I understand that certain people haven't got that luxury, and they are professional stalkers, and they're just there to get deer down. That's their main objective. That is their occupation. But for me, as a recreational hunter, I've been quite fortunate, the same as yourself, with Diana safaris, etc., to go to South Africa and America, all over Europe, Belgium, Germany, France. And one thing I've come across in various scenarios is when things go wrong. Somebody's landed in Africa, and we've all seen this, and something technically goes wrong. Normally the smallest screw in a mounting system or something has got lost or damaged, and that makes their rifle obsolete. And they're now thousands of miles away from home. That's why I've liked practicing for so long, honing my skills with the iron sights or the open sights. So if something does go wrong, I can literally just take it off and I can still hunt, whether it be restricted, but it's still my rifle and my experience. So, I mean, what do you find now coming through as your training facility?
We see a massive cross-section of the whole shooting community. And if we look at it as a generational thing, if I'd been set up in the training business that we've got 40, 50 years ago, the rifles turning up, some would have had open sights. Most of them would have had open sights, to be honest. They would have had scopes retrofitted to them, because scopes, obviously 50 years ago, a lot of stalkers were using scopes. But it would have had the old vestigial open sights on it. There wouldn't have been a moderator. And the scopes we were looking at were generally 4x32 or 6x42.
PCAR.
Yeah, and everyone got on with hunting deer. They were using what we call point blank zero. We weren't dialing up and down. We weren't worrying about that sort of stuff. We were using a scope, perhaps sighted in 1 or 2 inches high at 100. And if it was 200 yards away, that would be pretty much dead on. And if it was further than 200 yards away, we'd get closer. Now, moving forwards 50 years, we've got people turning up with rifles with no hint of a open sight setup on them, because we moved the scopes. And the scopes have changed in that zoom has arrived, and more must be better, mustn't it? Because that's generally how we look at things. So we're in a situation where someone turning up, no iron sights, a rifle with perhaps a longer, heavier barrel than an ordinary hunting sporting rifle would have had, because in theory it's more accurate. And the scope which was a 4x32 back in my day, if you were lucky, or maybe a 6x42, it's turned into, that went into a 3 to 9 power scope, if you remember. The first zoom scopes were all 3 to 9. Then it went 3 to 12. Then it started going 4 to 16. The next thing we knew, it was 5 to 20, and now you can buy scopes 10 to 50 power. More must be better. But in this cross-section of the shooting community we're seeing, we've now got people turning up with the heavy rifle, perhaps, with a lot of magnification on the scope, and their problems are they're struggling to find a deer in the woods because on 20 power it's a really small picture. When they should be shooting the deer, they're looking through the rangefinder. Yeah, but it's only 50 yards away. Yeah, but you've got this, you're looking through your rangefinder. Then you're trying to muck about with the scope, and just when the ghillies go, okay, take it, they are perhaps adjusting the scope because they imagine that it's only 50 yards away, they need to come down a couple of clicks. All of that is confusion. Generationally, we're from a generation who probably started shooting at a time when a family member could clip you around the back of the head if you weren't safe without ending up in court.
Yep.
Where you would get back from school, you'd grab your little BSA Meteor rifle, which had a fairly horrible trigger, let's be honest. You'd get a tin out the bin, you'd grab a little box of those cheap Marksman airgun pellets, 200 I think
200 in a
and
box.
you'd see if you could get through 200 pellets before Mum called you in for tea kind of thing. And what you were doing was you were bouncing that tin can down the lawn, 15 yards, 20 yards, 25 yards, aiming over a little bit, 30 yards, can't hit it now, I'll go a bit closer or it's fallen off the edge of the lawn, I'll have to go and fetch it. And that's how we practice shooting. Open sights, gun with a rubbish trigger, freestanding, unless you're lucky enough to have a picnic table to lean on or something. So generationally, when we were then told we could have a little 4x32 scope on our rifle, it was like rocket science. Oh my God, we've got a scope, we can see, we can aim more accurately. We're not just hitting the tin, we're hitting the tin in the middle. All of this is improvement. But I think you and I sit down there sometimes in our generation of shooting, and we're looking at all this new kit and we're looking at what's happening on social media, and we're thinking, where'd the apprenticeship go? And do they appreciate what they've got? And do they realise that if you walk into a wood with a 4 to 16 power scope, your first job should be to wind it down to 4 power? Because it's easier to shoot a deer in the woods on 4 power than it is on 16 power. It's horses for courses. It's looking at all this kit and all the advantages that shooters now have, but actually knowing when you might need to zoom in and when you really ought to zoom down. It's understanding the kit. And then, of course, we come on to these delightful things, the open sights. Fashion goes in circles. And I firmly believe there's a good chance that the next fashion in shooting, having got so technical, is going to be a bit of a back to basics movement. And I think that would be no bad thing. What do you think?
I think it'd be really good. I went out stalking with a colleague of mine. I'm always banging on about old school and how old-fashioned I am because I like to hunt. The actual shooting aspect of it is neither here nor there, as long as I can hunt and get it back to the freezer. And I used to work on old concepts, walk a little, watch a lot. So it'd take you quite a long time to go through a 300 metre strip of wood because you're always looking for that deer, the little twitch, the tail, something moving. And went out with him over in Salisbury way, and he had this new thermal thing, and he was marching around like a. He wasn't worried about the frost or the leaves or the sticks or anything. It was just crunch, because he was just literally this fast. And I thought, whoa. He said, no, I'll pick up a heat signature and then I'll shoot it. And that's all he was relying on. So all the old skills, watching the wind. People have seen them now with a talcum powder. In my day, it still is a Marlboro cigarette, and that'll tell me which way the wind's going. Yeah. But people now, it's just, again, everything's out the window. It's just relying on that one magic box to find something.
I come from the walk a little, look a lot school. If I'm what I call still hunting, which is more of an American expression, through 200 yards of woodland in Berkshire or somewhere, that 200 yards along that little track I've got sorted out, it's probably going to take me at least half an hour. And by the time I've done that 200 yards, I'm exhausted. Because actually, it's like doing yoga. Because you're that tense. Moving slowly actually takes a lot of energy. Looking a lot takes a lot. And what I discovered as a bit of a traditionalist is that now that I've joined the dark side and I've also got a thermal, okay, if I add the thermal to my still hunting, my stalking abilities, as happened down in Devon recently, it turns me into a creature of some efficiency. If I had to cull deer and I've got to go through woodland to cull them, to be honest, the thermal thing, it gives me another edge, because what I find is I can scan for quite a long time with a really nice pair of binoculars. I can't see a thing. And then I look with a thermal and it's like ping, and I can see this fuzzy white outline. And I look back with the binoculars and I still can't see it. I look again with the thermal, and then I look with the binoculars the second time and I'll just see something move. So it's like an early warning system. There is a role for it, but if you haven't got stalking experience, you haven't been out with someone who's got the skills that you need to learn, and you think it's just marching through, all you'll do is you'll bump them earlier.
And you'll just see them as before.
Yeah.
You might just see a tail.
You still
might
can't.
get them with the
You
first
still can't
stand up.
march about. I actually was in a situation down in Devon recently where we were stalking reds in a piece of woodland, and you wouldn't believe how you can hide a red deer in a piece of woodland. And actually, it turned out it was hiding at least 18, possibly 24 red deer in a piece of very dense woodland. And it's very strange, I initially saw them before I put the thermal up. I just saw something that was the wrong colour of brown.
Things hide very
And
well.
then when I looked with the thermal, it was absolutely obvious, Okay, I could have thought it was a tree stump. The thermal told me it wasn't. And I got the deer, the whole system came together. I only shot it at 50 yards. I could easily have shot it with open sights. As it was, I had a telescopic sight on the rifle. It was zoomed down to about 3 power. That's all I needed. So all of this stuff can come together, but the principle of actually understanding the fundamentals and the basics first are important. Think of it like driving lessons. If you learn to drive on an auto, you really won't be competent on a car with gears. If you learn to drive on a manual car, you can jump in an auto and it's just straight forwards. I firmly believe in shooting and hunting. You should learn the rites of passage. You should go to the stick shift first and then go to the auto. And it's a bit like with the rifles. Learn to shoot with open sight, then you'll appreciate a telescopic sight. Really learn to stalk with binoculars, taking 10 minutes to go 50 yards, then you'll really appreciate thermal if you add it. But the thing should be additions to an existing skill base. They shouldn't be instead of the skills you've missed out on completely. That's my pitch.
No, I think you're right. I mean, I was round a friend's house last week having a glass of wine in his garden with his barbecue thing going, and we were talking about hunting. He said to me, Andy, you're always banging on about Merker rifles and how they're good for travelling. And I said, yeah, because I like to travel. And he's got lots of stalking and he's doing it 3 or 4 days a week. So we were talking about Merker, he's got various rifles. I said, I'll tell you what then, because I was with him in Scotland when his scope packed up, a good quality scope, and it just couldn't see, it was like just Scotch mist inside.
Yeah.
I said, tell you what, and I got a piece of paper, and I said, write down your 3 most memorable hunts. And he sat there for 10 minutes, he wrote them down. I said, right, let's have a look. This is a man that goes out 3 or 4 days a week. All 3 of those memorable hunts were when he was abroad.
Yeah.
Poland, France, and then Poland again. So it doesn't matter how much you do, it's always that travelling one that you remember. That's where your memories are made. We went through and I showed him some of the benefits of having a travel rifle that you can take apart, put in a small holder or a case and take away with you wherever you go. And he was really sort of, yeah, you're right actually. That is all the stalking I do, the hunting, it was those memorable moments that he remembered. And he just turned around to me and said, Andy, you got a point. He said, build me a rifle to make my memories. And I thought,
Yeah,
no problem at all. So we've got him a nice high-grade Merkel coming. But again, he wants to learn now to use his open sights.
Yeah.
Because he's had it before when a scope has failed on him. He's had a scope and a mount fail when he's been... If you're in Scotland, it's probably about a 200-mile round trip to go and get something fixed from...
I went all the way to Turkey with a 300 Win Mag with a 2.5 power scope on it to go driven boar hunting, and the weather was much colder than it was today, and I went out, took the gun out the thing on the first day of the boar hunt, couldn't see a thing, totally fogged up scope. I'd actually taken a spare scope to Turkey with me, so that evening I could swap them over and re-zero the following morning, but actually I lost a day's driven boar hunting.
Yeah, and this is one of the things we're discussing. And I was talking to the boys and girls over at Merkel. Now, with Merkel, all their new rifles, I mean, you can still have options where you have no sights, but everything now comes with open sights.
Yeah.
So these open sights, one single screw, you can take them off, pop them in your case. They're all threaded. So if you end up going to Turkey or Poland, like my colleague did, or Scotland, and all of a sudden something goes very, very wrong, you can just literally pop those straight back in. It's going to limit your hunting, but at least you're back in the game and you're, with your rifle, having the experience that you've paid for.
There's a lot to be said for it.
Yeah, and that's why Merkel have gone through this. I mean, they've got two great things going for the sighting options on these now. One is the integral Picatinny rail. So there's nothing there that can go loose. You can put any mounting system, just a simple Leupold or a Zoomer, quick release mount. So no need for screwdrivers and bits and pieces. And it's not going to cost you a fortune like various other German manufacturers who are going to charge £500 for a mounting system.
Oh, it's the extras that make the money, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's like buying a BMW car, isn't it? It's all... You don't need that with a Merkel, and you've got this option now, so you can put these sights back on. So if you learn to shoot your Merkel when you first zero it in with the open sights, you can then take them off and put them away in your box,
Actually,
and they're there for an emergency.
The way they're set up, they're not really in the way. To be honest, you might as well run with them on.
They're all threaded. You can put, if you've got a over barrel mod, you could take the front one off.
I suspect with one of the thinner section mods, you can probably use the open sight with a mod
straight on there. So I think it's just a great option. It's just one of those things. But I only use Leupold, and I always use the 6 power scope straight tube. A lot of people say to me, "You can't hunt with that. You can't shoot deer with that." I said, "Well, I don't know why. If I can shoot rabbits with a 3 to 9 power, a deer's quite a bit bigger. Why can't I shoot it with a 6 power?"
When the variable scopes first came out, which is something we can obviously remember, my interest in variable scopes wasn't actually going 3 to 9, and it wasn't going 3 to 12. My interest in variable power scopes was going 6 to 1, or 1.5 to 6, which is that classic thing, because I never felt I needed more than 6. But when you got stuff close in woodland, actually being able to zoom down to 1 or 2 power was priceless in woodland, and certainly for driven hunting, absolutely priceless. So it's a weird thing. I've got a completely backwards view of it. In terms of a hunting rifle, I'm not looking to put a 5 to 25 on or a 6 to 24. I want to put a 1.5 to 6 on it, because I never needed more than 6 to shoot a deer in my life anyway.
So it's basically the same as what I'm using here. 6 power.
Brilliant.
You're going to talk about BSA meteors and how bad their trigger was. We didn't know any different. It was what it was.
We did when we got a Viking.
I didn't. I actually got a fine work ball.
Or an original or a fine work barrel.
I got my first scope in 1979. I've been shooting since 1970 something else. And in 1979, my dad bought me this. It was a scope called a Rhino. Made in China probably, or Japan. And that was a 3 to 9. And I thought it was great because I could zoom in and I could. These starlings look like turkeys. Because you used to shoot starlings in those days on your dustbins. And one thing I realised, for some reason, my dad had bought me this scope, and it was great, and I could see things a lot better. But I wasn't hitting anymore or shooting any more accurately. I could shoot just as well with the open sights.
It was an airgun at the range involved, 10, 15, 20, 30 yards. Actually, you can hold a fairly decent sight picture on a rabbit at that range anyway.
Yeah, I'd successfully
more
hunted
precise,
rabbits
perhaps, with the scope.
and various things in the back garden, and numerous birds off the aerial.
Yeah.
So that was quite common as well. So,
Well, we'll crack on, and we'll go through the various different open sites and see where we go with them compared to the telescopic. Genuinely, 20 to maybe 60, 70, 80 yards or metres, you should be able to hit a target in the kill zone just as well with an open sight as you should with a telescopic, as in the kill zone.
yeah, I think managing expectations, I know in the world of military field you should be able to hit a person at 300 yards, but
Yeah, but that's only somewhere.
Yeah. Anywhere will do,
Yeah.
as long as it puts him out the game and someone else has to carry him away. But in hunting, I think I'd agree about 50 yards is realistic. And to actually get down and start hunting in the woods and get down to 50 yards, I think that's great. I mean, what I tend to do, personally, this is just my personal thoughts, there's no science behind it, only my own experience. I tend to walk in the morning with an open sight, and then I sit in the evening, and then that's when I use an optic.
Yeah.
But something like this, I can just literally switch 2 clips and it's off.
Having that return to zero thing
Yeah.
is a great confidence
Yeah,
builder.
and Leupold offers some great mounting systems to go with their scopes as well.
Okay, let's have a go at it.
Right, let's see if we can hit some of these targets in the snow. Because it is
Well,
quite chilly out there, isn't it?